there's a group of South Africans that you're familiar with because you're from South Africa, Zevida Nel, and you've got a background that has been closely related to a goal of coming to New Zealand since early times, since your youth.
Yes.
Maybe we can start there. Should we start with your earliest memory of wanting to come to New Zealand?
Yes, I was about 19 years old and we were sitting in church. And I don't know, I can't remember if it was a missionary or what it was, but someone came to speak to us about New Zealand in church. And he was just explaining and going through the statistics of job opportunities. And the thing that really got to me more was the statistics about crime. And I remember just telling my mom, that's where I want to live. I want to move to New Zealand. And it's been a dream ever since. It's still a pipeline dream. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm still hoping it will happen for me and my family.
And since that time, you've done research on New Zealand, you've talked about it with your family, and your family is now looking at New Zealand, and it all came from your 19-year-old experience. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, it's quite exciting because we had to decide when we started looking at immigration, we had to decide which country to look at. And that did play a big role. Yes, I'm blessed to have a husband who takes that into consideration.
Yeah.
And he said, well, let's go for it.
Yeah, let's go for it. And you're also blessed to have a husband who is well positioned for the New Zealand economy in terms of his skills.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, that also played a big role. So we made an educated decision. It wasn't just an emotional one.
Oh,
it was,
right.
we went to go see an agent and we looked at all the options. Went to seminars, we did a lot of reading. And to us, it just seems New Zealand is a better fit for our family.
Yeah. It's nice when you have the emotion and also the educated both agreeing, and then you also have the partnership, the family agreeing as well. So it's all like one unit pushing in a positive direction.
Yes, definitely. The agents told us this will be one of the biggest roller coaster rides of our life. So, and so far it has been.
Yeah.
And they told us this pre-COVID. So I think now with COVID, it's even more.
Yes, for sure. So regarding your husband, Munich, how was his, how did he first start to buy into the whole idea? Do you have a memory of that? So it's you and he together, you're married, I suppose, before you start talking about this, and then you start talking about this at some point. Do you remember the moments when you
To be honest, we only started talking about immigration after our first child was born. And then we started thinking about it. And then what also happened was Monique changed jobs, and this was for an international company. We actually had a branch in New Zealand and Australia. And suddenly it just seemed to be like something that can actually happen for us. And then we started doing the research and the webinars and the seminars and seeing the agents and stuff like that. So it was a gradual process. Like for me, I've been wanting to go for many years. For him, it's a few years now, but not as many as me. I had to wait for him to be ready.
And could you talk about your family as well, Zevida, like your children, the ages, and then are they, how much do they understand about this whole idea of coming to New Zealand?
So Nika is 6 and Ruben is 3. Ruben doesn't understand. Nika, so we started the process September 2019. She only turned 6 now. But we have a very open relationship with our children. So I started talking about it since then. They were very excited to get passports and all of that. And she's very excited. She keeps asking us, when are we going? She says, when she's a teenager, she's already going to be in New Zealand. And she said, once she's in New Zealand, she's going to become a surfer. So for her, she understands. Ruben is too small to understand. We were actually hoping to get there when he was still a baby. So, but yeah, the kids are very excited.
it's been a lot of surprises recently. You normally would have been here because of the position of your family and Munich, especially getting work, but the whole family has a very good profile. So the demand for INZ is quite positive for the profile that you guys have. And but this interruption happened. For you personally, I guess maybe it's important to mention just how that interruption, because we're all individuals, we all experience it differently. How did your family experience that interruption, and how have you adapted to this COVID lockdown interruption?
Okay, so I would say it hit me the hardest. For me, it was like very bad, especially because Minik was just starting with you and he was just starting to look for work. So for me, it's been a lot of tears, a lot of stress. For Minik, he's been able to put it in a box and carry on with his life. He still wants to go to New Zealand. He's just better at putting stuff in a box because he still is the breadwinner of our family. I'm a stay-at-home mom. So for us in that regard, it hit me harder. But for him as a husband, it also hit him hard because he's not being able to provide for something that he sees I need. But he's used the time productively. He's gotten even more work experience. In this time, his one manager has immigrated to Australia and he's gotten a new manager. And with that, he's been able to convince the work to get more equipment. So he's getting different experiences as well. For Nika, it's also been quite hard because they've tried to abduct her twice and she remembers it.
Oh, no.
So she remembers stuff like that. So for her, it's also hard. She's very, I feel embarrassed to say it, but she's very negative about South Africa. And so I don't want my child to grow up in a negative environment. So Minik did ask me, why is Nika so negative about South Africa? Have you been saying something? And I said, I haven't really. I watch what I say, but I said, she's not stupid. When we drive out of here, she sees all the electric fencing. And then she asks me, why does all the houses have electric fencing? Then she sees all the weeds growing and she's like, it looks like a forest. Or she sees the litter is a big problem in South Africa. So she sees the stuff for herself and she wants a better future for herself as well. So it's hit her hard as well. And she does ask me a lot when she's going. And like I said, Ruben is too small to know.
Yeah.
But it has, it hit us as a family quite hard, but we're getting through it and we're still blessed compared to so many other people. COVID hasn't affected us nearly as hard as other people. We're very blessed in that sense.
Yeah. I think something comes to mind about what you're saying with taking the positive approach. Munich has gone to advance himself in terms of reputation and collect those things that could be useful for him later finding work. This is a situation where we have, let's be fair, it's very stressful for people to have this unknown. It's a big thing, isn't it? You're here, you're there in the country, and you're in the unique position, Zevida, that not only do you experience your own waiting and challenges, and those people that you know that may be in your circle of friends, but also you're part of a group, this South Africans migrating to New Zealand, this group, and there's a huge flow rate of people coming, attempting to come, struggling with different things, successful at different things, having stories, having details of stories going back and forth, and you're an administrator there, and you have been the whole time, right? The whole time during.
Yeah, I've been admin on the group since basically we started our journey in 2019 in September, and Shane asked me shortly after that they need another moderator, and I said, well, let me do it. Because one of the things I thought was like, you know what, it's good to start any kind of network so long.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I started quite soon into our journey. I was on moderation, and that's also, you actually learn about immigration quicker that way.
Yeah.
So
What works,
yeah,
what doesn't work.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and you see what works for people. You learn from other people, because I think sometimes what people think is because we admin we know everything, and we don't.
No.
We sometimes just as in the dark
Yeah.
as other people,
For sure.
but we can also learn from other people's
Yeah.
immigration journeys, and we help where we can.
Yeah. If we take the things that you're able to help the most with, what's the typical advice that you can give that has always shown itself to be true? Let's say someone, the typical maybe problems that you're able to resolve versus the typical problems that you're not able to resolve.
So basically what I've found is a lot of people make the same mistake we did, and they just send out CVs, and you don't really get a result.
No.
So even though they haven't had a job offer yet, and I think it's more due to COVID, we've had positive feedback even in COVID times since we started using your program. So for me, I always advise people to first go to you, and once they have a job offer, to go to an agent. Then there's a few agents on the groups that I personally like, and then I would give them their contact details. And also, we always recommend to go read on the Immigration New Zealand website itself. And something else I always tell people is, remember, it's illegal for me to give you immigration advice.
Yeah.
It's not because we don't want to help you, it's because we can't help you, because we might have something wrong, give you the wrong information, and then sink your immigration dream.
Yeah.
And then something else I always tell people is just don't give up.
Right.
That's the advice that one of the other admins gave me. He said it took him 5 years to get a job offer.
Oh, right.
So for some people, it just takes longer.
Yeah, right.
And for other people, it goes quicker.
So the INZ website first, why? Because it's complete and it's written for you, for the average person.
Yes, it's not a bad website compared to other immigration websites that I've been checking out and have been on. It's quite user friendly, and it tells you exactly what to do and what not to do. So, and you can choose which visa you want. You can even type in a scenario, and then it pops up visa options.
Yeah.
And it's there's no false information on it.
Right. Unlike other places where there's a lot of opinions and things that.
And what I like about it as well is there's changes coming, but they give their visa names, not just numbers. So you're working with, okay, this is a work visa, this is the type of work visa. So this is the resident visa, and this is this visa, where it's easier to remember than a 482 visa or something like that. So
yeah.
It is quite user friendly.
You've been looking at other countries, and that's why you know that some countries have these visa numbers rather than visa names.
Yes. Now we thought, like I said before, we had to look at other countries to make a decision. Yeah. And also in COVID times, with New Zealand being so whatever about their borders, we did start looking a little bit. And then Minik told me to stop looking. We're first going to wait still a little bit.
Yeah.
And we've put so much energy into it. Yeah. It's been our dream. So he said, let's just wait.
Yeah. So INZ first, that makes perfect sense. Once you get your emotions and your target zone on New Zealand, then INZ is the great stop for figure things out from that point of view. It's on the one side generic, but on the other side, it covers individuals rather well, would you say, by category?
Yeah, I think it's a very nice website. Like for me, it's definitely more user friendly than others that I've tried to go on. And they do make it seems very welcoming, like they want you to come. Like just before COVID, there was a very nice video. It was posted on the group that the government had made to attract people to come to New Zealand, to come live and stay there. So all of that was also part of the decision making.
And the government does get a lot of blame, and I know some of it's deserved blame for being incompetent and not handling things well. But it
Yes,
is just a government, and governments don't do things well. They're good at fines. They're good at discipline when things go wrong. You know,
yes,
they've got certain skills, but one of them is not assisting people in micro categories to manage through things. It's clumsy at best, and I think New Zealand should have done a lot better, no question about it. And they should
no,
have.
I think a lot of people do definitely feel like that, and it's fair, especially on people that hasn't been able, like split families, that it's fair for them to feel upset with the government.
Yeah,
um
yeah.
I can understand that.
What sort of problems have you seen with the group? Because you're viewing, I guess, at least hundreds, maybe even 1,000 stories you've sort of picked up over the past couple of years. You probably have an idea of the different sorts of things that you see. So from your point of view as an admin, what has the general experience been, at least from your point of view on the group? So you've seen the moods sort of change in the last couple of
Yes.
years. Yeah. Could you explain maybe from that point of view how things have changed?
Okay. So basically, we used to get so many positive posts, and it was job offer, visa approved, residency approved. It was all, and we got a lot of posts about, "Oh, okay, I haven't seen my husband in 3 months. I'm flying tomorrow." You know, it was a lot of positive things going on. And the people on the group really defended New Zealand if anybody said any negative about it. But with borders closing, and I think especially borders closing so abruptly, for example, there was people that was already boarded on a plane, waiting for the plane to take off, that had to get off a plane. I
Yeah.
think for those people, I can really understand them
Yeah.
being negative.
Yeah.
I think, for example, in South Africa, the president gave a few days warning. So yes, I know that also comes with risk, but I think it was a bit more fair. But then again, I'm not a prime minister or a president. I don't have that pressure on me. And then in the end of the day, I think what we also have to remember is immigration is important to us. We want to get out. We want to go to your country. And then I think sometimes we forget that the country first has to look after its own people, the people that's already there. And it's not nice. I don't like it in the sense of, because that's a negative for me personally, but I can understand it from a political point of view and even an economic point of view. So yes, the group was very positive. We saw a lot of positive things. And then the group was very supportive of each other. We could tell stories about why we wanted to leave. And as COVID carried on, the group definitely got quieter. And we had a few select members who were extremely negative. And I understand them being negative, but posting about it the whole time and slandering New Zealand the whole time isn't what the group is about. So we did eventually remove those members, not because we're against freedom of speech or anything, but people don't need to go onto our group and keep reading how bad New Zealand is, because in all honesty, then you shouldn't be going to, they were still keeping New Zealand as an option.
Yes.
But they were bad mouthing it the whole time. And we were like, it's just getting too much.
Yeah.
So we do still try and keep the group informative. Like if we see something from the government that's official, we post it. We have agents who also are really active on the group. They will post something. So we're still trying to keep it as positive as possible. And the other thing we've decided to do is so we don't allow discussions about vaccines, as you know. We don't allow discussions about how bad people think South Africa is, because that doesn't help anybody in the end of the day. It becomes an emotional warfare, and then all admin is doing is having to stop comments, delete comments. I've had people private messaging me telling me I'm a Satan worshiper just because we have different points of view.
Yeah.
So from that side, it's hard being an admin. But and obviously with COVID, you could see the group took quite a nosedive. But every time there's positive news, people are still coming and being positive. And it's also nice to see we still get a lot of new member requests every day. So people are still wanting to come to New Zealand.
You've seen people flowing out permanently, sometimes temporarily. You've seen people coming in as well the whole time. There's this, it's still New Zealand. It's still an island. It's still got a good climate. It still has good people inside it, even if there's.
Yes, it still has a low crime rate. It still has a very low jobless rate.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of positives about it. So it's important to still remember a lot of those positives are still there.
Yeah. Well said. So the first item, look at INZ. If you're interested in New Zealand, you have a site there that manages people that would like to learn more about New Zealand. And after you look at the INZ website, you may switch gears and start looking for the work, and that's the next stage. And
I always recommend people to send their CV to you first, because I know you're honest, and you'll tell them if the agents aren't as honest, and I find you more honest. You'll tell people if it's going to be harder for them or not. So. And I know that because a member has told me that you have told her you don't think you can help her. So I do know you give honest feedback. So I always recommend, after reading on INZ, that they first chat to you.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm in a sort of a lucky position because my costs aren't high. I don't have salaries to pay. I don't have expensive budgets to cover month to month. So if I have less clients, what I do is I spend less. Like my clients spend less when they don't have work for a while. It's the same thing.
Yeah. But what I also always tell people is, like, I think I might be wrong, you can correct me, but I think you also depended on word of mouth.
Yeah.
Like if you're not going to give a good service, or people are going to use you but not get any results, you're not going to have a good reputation.
That's right. No, I have no branding budget. Yeah, that's right.
So when people also pick an agency, we always tell them, go look in the search. There's a search function on the group. And from that, you can gather a lot of word of mouth information. And from that, pick your agency.
So get the dream sorted, level 1, level 2, documents and INZ at the same time, maybe.
Yeah, you can do that at the same time, definitely.
And especially those documents that are long time, which is quite a big list. And that list is available on your site. You can just
it's available on our site, and it's available on the INZ website as well.
Yeah. Then with those long-term things either coming or received, you can start going to the job side and start sorting that out with confidence, getting confidence in that area, or maybe even a job offer if you're really lucky from abroad.
There's my one friend that's in New Zealand right now, her husband was at a conference for work, or an expo for work or something, and he spoke to someone and said, I want to come to New Zealand, what's your best advice? And the guy gave him a job offer.
Yeah, great.
So
there's a lot of these.
It doesn't always happen like that.
No,
but it can.
Yeah, it can.
Then I have other friends in New Zealand. Her husband flew over for the interviews. He didn't hear, they said he's got the job, he flew back, didn't hear anything for months, and then they suddenly sent the documents. So sometimes I think we also have to remember New Zealand is an island, and sometimes there's something called island time.
Yeah.
And also sometimes you have to take initiative and phone yourself and say, what's
Yes,
going on? Are we still,
absolutely. Yes.
but not in a nagging sense of way, but
Oh, no, no.
just in a
Right.
proactive sense of way.
Right. That's actually very good advice. The amount of times that I hear employers say, well, I lost touch with him. I guess he wasn't interested. But when I find out the details, it was neither side called back and neither side
Yes,
thought the other side was interested, you know,
yes.
but
So
actually you don't know unless you put that effort out, whether they're interested
yes,
or not. They don't call you and say, I'm not interested. And they
yes,
sometimes don't call you saying they're interested because they expect the driver to be, pushing for the work, to be interested, to be proactive. That's what they
yes,
want.
definitely. And something you also have to remember is a lot of the times the employers, they don't know all the ins and outs when it comes to visas and what it means if you say, I need sponsorship. They immediately think you need them to pay for your visa and everything. And that's not what it means in New Zealand terms. It just means I need a job offer. That's sponsorship in New Zealand terms. And you've got to be clear about that when you speak to them. Don't just assume they know that, because they often don't. They don't know what it means when you say that. And that's another reason why we did go with an agency, is because we can send with our CVs a letter from the agency so they can see we're serious.
Yes.
And we have someone to help us with the paperwork already.
Yeah.
And it just shows them you are very serious.
Yeah. No, those documents do help, and you're with a good agency, so it would be recognized by some of the employers as well. They can easily keyword search as well and figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. Well, you're on your way. I'm very positive about you. I think it has been a struggle for everyone, but you've managed it very well. And, the family's motivated in a positive way from what I can see still. And it's a pleasure to work with you and to get to know you in this process. And it's really—
Yeah, that is something about immigration. You should get to know people. Like Minik always says, he's pretty sure I've got more friends in New Zealand right now than in South Africa. But I mean, I've made good friends. Some are even way older than us, but they've already said if we're gonna stay close to them, they'll pull us into their community and introduce us to their friends. And that's what's also very nice about the group, is people are friendly. People want to help fellow South Africans. So we also have a group where if you are struggling with furniture or something that you ask for help, we also have a mom support group. And we've even divided the group up into, like, there's a Wellington group, there's a Christchurch group. So once you more know where you're going, you can join those groups as well.
Yes.
And I think that's something else that's important to remember, is you shouldn't immigrate with the idea of I want to go to Auckland or I want to go to Wellington. You have to go where the job is.
Yeah.
And
you can change
go
later.
from there.
Yeah. Go from
Sorry?
there. Yeah, you can change from later often. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that's sometimes why people also battle, is they really want to go to Auckland for whatever reason, and they're not thinking outside that box. And I do know it's good if you can get a job on the South Island as well. It's good in the long term for your residency.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got to be careful not to seem like I'm giving immigration advice. It's just from what I've experienced.
I think no, it's just your perspective of what you see. And and as far as the work goes, I can say you're 100% right. Leave it flexible, because the employers like to hear that there's a low barrier to hiring. If someone is fixed on Auckland, and if they promote this whole idea, someone who might be in Hamilton, which is real close, they'll say, oh, they want to be in Auckland, so I guess we won't even talk to them. It's like, whoa, no. No, I'll change my mind. No, I'm Hamilton now.
Yeah,
like,
so rather
sound real.
And also from from a personal point of view, if you go in with, I'll go anywhere in New Zealand, your chances increases, but also then you're not disappointed if you don't get the job in Auckland, but you go to Christchurch.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've heard people that has done that, and they actually prefer Christchurch now above Auckland, or vice versa.
Right.
So I think it's good to be open-minded. And something that's also important to know is sometimes the job descriptions are a little bit different. So you've got to make sure that the employer understands that you can do the job, and you guys can work out the title later. It's not that important.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
People focused on the title sometimes right up front.
yeah.
I
And
see.
then something else, a friend that's also in this process, that she got this good advice from her friend that's already in New Zealand, is you have to make a list about why you're immigrating.
Yeah.
And then once you're in New Zealand, on the bad days, look at your list. And if the list is still true, you're just having a bad day. Don't pack up and leave.
Yeah.
Because if the list is still true, you're going to be sorry if you go back.
Yeah.
So, because it's like even Nika says, Mommy, there's stuff about South Africa that I'm going to miss. And I'm like, of course there's stuff you're going to miss. You're going to miss your grandparents.
Yeah.
You're going to miss the house that you're growing up in. We've got a nice house here. So it's okay to say you're missing the stuff, but it's important to remember why you left.
Yes. Yes. So a little bit more detail on that one is that people will often come and, we all have patterns of thinking, and sometimes our thought process is focused on the negative, and that's fine. We're all different. But the thing is, if it stays there, you become an expert of picking out these differences that are negative, and you're missing the whole reason why you're leaving and why you're coming to New Zealand. So I'm close to the ocean. Did you forget that? There's no crime. Did you forget that? What about the opportunities? So if you're focused on the negative, you don't notice that when you go pick up your children, all the parents there, this is the biggest opportunity for community involvement. If you remember, you go to this school and you're meeting your child, the child has friends, the friends of your child has parents. Those parents want to get along with you, all of them. They don't want bad relations with friends of their children. This is the perfect opportunity for barbecue and social integration right into your community. Doesn't mean you have to be friends with all of them. I'm not saying that, but look for those opportunities. And if you're in a positive state of mind, you will see them. You'll see them easily. But if you're in a negative state of mind, you know how it is. You just don't see the positive things that are right there because your thoughts are in a different.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think something that we're trying to read up on the culture and the do's and the don'ts is to rather embrace it than fight it.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you're still going to be who you are.
Yeah.
But you also have to embrace like your new home's culture, in my opinion.
Of course, yeah. We as adults, and myself included, I'll never be a New Zealander in the eyes of all New Zealanders. Some, some are fine. Actually, there's a huge foreign community, so I'm fine with whatever. There'll be people from, there's people here, I mean, just to give you a sense, there's New Zealanders here that don't consider New Zealanders because they didn't come in on the first boats, okay? So it can get really ridiculous. The point is, I'm here, I'm adapted, I've got a relationship with a certain number of people in my community. I'm fine, I'm happy, my family's happy. That's it. Don't get any more complicated than that. What you'll see with the children is the children will have the New Zealand accent, especially your ones, the young ones.
Yes.
They'll be able to turn on this New Zealand accent and you'll think, wow, what kind of English is that? Because you'll hear words differently, and they'll be growing right up in it, and they'll be considered like one of the whole society. So you've done your job. Your job was to give your children a better life. They're going to have it.
Yes. Now, I always joke and tell Minik, because I'm pretty sure the kids are going to pick up on the accent, and Minik tends to pick up on accents. Like when he was overseas in Germany and he was speaking to an American, he says, you sort of sounding a little bit American. So he's going to pick up the accent, and the kids are going to pick up the accent, and they're going to think they found themselves a foreign mom somewhere. But that's okay.
Yeah. So looking back, this is one of life's challenges. There's many of them, and it's an opportunity to realize who you are and reevaluate and solidify, maybe feel more firm about your direction and who you are and why you're doing things. And it's an opportunity. You may not like it. We don't like all the opportunities, call them opportunities. We don't like all of them, but after we adjust to them, we're better. So take it as
definitely I think some advice we also got was immigration can be very hard on your marriage.
Yeah.
And it's just to keep communicating and keep talking and making sure you're on the right page.
Yes.
And also to not let the small things about the immigration like become fights.
Yeah, become fights. Yeah.
Because unfortunately the divorce rate amongst immigration is very high.
Yeah.
And it's better to know that, I feel, because then you can know, okay, I need to be aware of this, keep checking in with my husband or my wife, and making sure we're still good. Because for me, I don't want to move all the way there and then have my marriage fall apart.
No, right.
So, and I know it happens, and I'm not judging anyone. I'm just saying that's the advice the agency gave us, is to make sure your marriage is strong.
Yeah. Have you noticed that partners that cooperate together on the immigration effort generally understand each other a little bit better in the process versus maybe, for example, no, you handle the immigration side, I'll do the other side, and there can be like a lack of understanding in that second variable?
Yeah, that happens. It even happens with us because my next focus is to get the job. So my focus is to make sure to stay up to date with visa information, that type of things, and to get like to start a community from this side already. So sometimes we are both so focused on our own little part of it that we do sometimes forget about the other person's. Like I can sometimes overwhelm Minik when I start speaking about visas and how it works and all of this, and it's like, okay, but that's not his focus. He'll worry about that once the job offer gets. And I'm like, but if you know all of this now, it's going to be easier. But in the end of the day, people work differently.
Yeah.
And I think we just have to respect that.
Yeah.
And that's also where the group is nice, because you make friends on the group and then you speak to your friends about it and you make them crazy. So my one friend, I made a good friend on the group, and she and Minna can talk because she's also more put it in a box and she's more relaxed. And then her husband, he wants to go like yesterday, like me. So I can vent and she can vent, and we can all just, at least we understand where each other is coming from. So I think it's, if you can use a group and make friends in your area. I mean, we've got people from all over South Africa, and what's nice is now we're supporting each other, and hopefully in New Zealand, if we're close to each other, we can stay friends.
Yeah.
And so, which is also nice.
I think people watching this will see an honest person who is in the middle of an effort, a dedicated effort, long-term effort since earlier youth. And now the family is growing. It's still a young family. The dedication is still there. You're managing a group, so you have a unique perspective. So it's not just your perspective. You've got sort of a lot of influence around from, and you have more friends here than you're a great go-to person for anyone who's thinking about New Zealand and anyone who wants help.
I just want to say, if you go in the group, all of us, all the admin, we're always available. You're allowed to send us a private message. We're open to, if you just ever want to talk. Sometimes someone messages me for support and they end up supporting me. So, because I'm quite emotional, but again, I'm here for you. Like I said, I've made friends like this. I'm supporting these people, and we are there for each other. And that's what the group is about. It's sharing information and being there for each other, and no judgments or anything like that. And something else we've personally done is, we are a homeschooling family in South Africa. We haven't decided yet if we are or not going to homeschool in New Zealand. We'll make that decision once we're there. But we are Afrikaans speaking, as you can hear from my accent, but we are homeschooling in English, so that the transition for the children is going to be smoother, because that's just something we've decided to do. And the curriculum we're homeschooling with is international. So we're feeling that's the safest route to go, especially with COVID, not knowing when we're going. We want our children, if they want to go to school in New Zealand, to just fit in and not have to have a language barrier. I know a lot of people ask this question, and the Afrikaans kids I've heard do adjust quickly, but from my personal point of view, I thought rather start English here and make it even easier for her.
Yeah, good thoughts. That's a second job. That's actually a job, that whole teaching thing.
Yeah, so basically that is my job. I'm a stay-at-home mom and a homeschool, so I'm busy all the time. That's why we also only doing this talk so late.
Yeah. This is all volunteer time. You're dedicated to helping other people. Firstly, your children. Secondly, other people outside.
No, if we can help anyone who wants to go to New Zealand, we always try. And yeah, sometimes it's hard because sometimes people come to us, and with some of the information we share, they tend to go before us. But I've read something nice that says you always have to keep clapping until it's your turn. But it's hard when you see it. It's better to be honest and say it's hard, but it's also a good thing. It's a positive thing. Yeah. It means if it can happen for them, it can happen for you.
Yeah. The people that come in, are they in the special categories? The people that come
since COVID, yes. It's mostly people in the medical field. I think I've read about one exception, and it's also on the list. The person is in construction and is working on a government project.
Right.
But I've seen others who've said they meet the criteria. Their employers have upped their salaries to meet it, and they haven't. They haven't been given exemption and exemption. Sorry, and. But what people also need to remember is this is not just New Zealand. This is other countries as well.
Yeah.
I know of people that's immigrated to Australia in COVID times where there's citizens who can't even get back in. So it's a little bit a luck of the draw at the moment. And that's why I think people shouldn't give up. But it's okay to take a break.
Yeah. That's right. Medical seems to have an easy way, and I've got all the same experiences with clients of mine as what you said. It's so challenging to for people to get through that are non-medical and in areas like construction or trades. It does happen, but it's very rare, and it's with a lot of effort, and it's supporting material from employers and others as well. Agencies, and if you can get from an association, like for a plumbers or a trades association as well, it helps. Actually, that might help quite a lot as well. It's rare, but yeah. The thing is, with me, the amount of effort it takes, I wouldn't suggest it to anyone. I would just say, concentrate on the borders opening, because is it possible? People will say, I'll say, well, yeah, but if I put a percent, it's like a fraction of 1%.
Yeah, so it's extremely small. And even for the people that's getting in, they can tell you how stressful it is, because you have to get a spot in isolation. Then that has to go inside with when you are flying. And then flights change. And then you've got to... And also these people are getting a critical purpose visa or critical visitors visa. They have to change that visa once they get there. So it's also a bigger financial burden. And then MIQ, some people say the employer needs to pay, other people say no, you have to pay, and others say the employer only has to pay for you, not for your family. So it can cost you 100,000 Rand just to go sit in that room for 2 weeks. And it's tempting to say, well, let's do it, but in the end of the day, it's a lot of money. But still, do your homework, do your connections, get your documents, and once the borders start opening, you can be first in line.
Good advice. And that first in line thing is going to be meeting a whole bunch of well-prepared people who are looking for work, are going to be meeting a whole bunch of proactive employers that are waiting for this. The employers have no choice, because if they don't do it, their competitors will do it. And from this
Yes.
side, the most proactive people looking for work are generally going to be among the best people that are out there, because that's generally
Yeah.
going to be the case, not always. Then there'll be wave two. Employers will already, some of these people that decide they're just going to quit for a while because they're managing their existing decision. They're no longer going to be looking. They've got their decisions to work with. They're going to be integrating them into the business model, into their projects and people, the teams. So I think the first wave, maybe second, it's going to be a period of 3 to 6 months, I think, when you're going to have a real live market, especially the first few months. So I'd like to
Yes,
see you and
definitely.
Munich get in at that time, and you're already prepared. You're already in process. I don't see anything. I mean, contact me if you need it. I don't think you'll need much, but I'm here like you. I'm here for my people
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, you always, that is something I can say. You do go the extra mile, and you always reach, like we can always reach you, especially with email. And yeah, and you yourself, like you said, you also had to immigrate to get to New Zealand. So I think you do know a lot of the emotions behind it.
Yeah.
And it's an emotional decision. And I think it's okay to say it's emotional, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Just because it's scary doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. For me, from a personal point of view, it's scary to go, but it's even more scary to stay. But
I can
yeah,
think of one more question, Zevida, and you may have other ones as well, but I can think of one more that I think is quite interesting. From all of the clients that I've helped in the last few years, there's hundreds of them. I don't know how many hundreds, but it's definitely hundreds. When they come into New Zealand, I've had one person go back, but it was because of family reasons. It wasn't because New Zealand was bad, at least what they told me. They only tell me what they tell me, but through my experience of people, the great percentage of them, I'd say 90, say they don't regret anything and they're happy they made the decision. There might be about 10% that say, it's been more challenging than I thought. And if I would have done it again, knowing the challenges, I might not have done it. But I'm here
yes,
now and I'm making the best of it. So that's about 10. I think 90. So this is the experience I've got. The overwhelming numbers say everything that I thought about New Zealand is the same or even better than I thought it was in a lot of categories. So
yes,
it's really a winner for most people coming from South Africa, especially. UK is a little bit different because that there's it's a different category of people with different expectations
yes,
from different countries. But South Africa, it's like we're at the 90% level plus of people that are happy with the decision, even with all the trouble that has happened along the way. They're happy. In some ways, I think the trouble makes it more of an emotional experience when it finally does happen. It's like that thing you've
yes.
been waiting for so long. Yeah. What is
No,
your
I'm gonna spam the group with photos once it's out.
yeah?
So yeah,
Do
that
you think
will.
that's about right with your experience, or do you have other percentages that you would?
Um. So I found it's if people feel they can be honest on the group, I have surprisingly found maybe a bit more than your percentages of people that's not happy with New Zealand, but they also won't come back to South Africa. So I think it's easy to, once you've adjusted to New Zealand and you've adjusted to the first world, you start seeing first world problems and you start complaining about them. That's just my view. For me, it's a bit hard to answer that question because we are still in South Africa.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it's very hard for us, Minik and I, we often talk about this. We don't understand when people say they want to come back. We
Yeah.
really don't.
Yeah.
But then again, we are not in New Zealand yet.
Yeah.
But from other people that I have spoken to that's been in New Zealand for years, said in their experience, it's people who's moved for the wrong reason.
Exactly. I've heard that many times.
And then I also know we have someone on the group who has said they came back for South Africa for money.
Yeah.
And that was the worst decision they could ever have made. They've never been able to get back into New Zealand.
Right.
So I've seen that. I've seen people returning because of visa issues. And that's why I'm saying don't take advice from me or from anyone else. If you don't understand INZ, if you feel uncomfortable, speak to an agent.
Yeah.
Because that's also sometimes why people return. And I think another thing is with homesickness, you start creating a South Africa that's not there. And I think we, from this side, do the same. We sometimes create a New Zealand that also isn't there. And once we get there, we're disappointed. And that's why it's important to know. That's why people should be able to say what is negative about the country, so you can go in with an open mind.
Right.
I think that, if that answers your question.
Yes, sharing the reality of the situation without, I mean, emotions are fine, but just admit like, hey, this is the reality is,
Like a silly example is, for example, rentals are expensive. And you can only start looking at buying once you've got residency. Like that for me is a negative to know about, but it's not a big enough negative to stop me from coming over.
Another thing I noticed, people will come here from abroad and they want the same lifestyle right away. And one of the things I do early on is before I work with people, I'll condition them to let them know that your starting point is very, depending on the role, your starting point is very likely not going to be where you're at now. So there's typically, I guess it's a pretty much a 90% thing, maybe 80-20. There'll be a dip for 80% for a while, even really high level people. And then you get back in. It's just the nature of the way moving around is this new culture, new things. And sometimes
that's also
don't like that.
Something that I've read is if you were like struggling financially in South Africa and you weren't wealthy, you adapt quicker in New Zealand. Because for you, sometimes it's actually a salary increase or it's the same. But with other benefits coming in. But if you were high up on the ladder, for those people I have heard, it's harder to adjust. But I've heard of people that's moved back for those reasons, and they are sorry they moved back. And then I know there's a return to South Africa page. But something I found a bit silly about it is I wanted to join the page to see why people are returning. But you're not allowed to join the page if you haven't immigrated yet. So for me, in my mind, that's why is the page there then? Like for me who's wanting to go, I'd rather go read what's on the page and see, do I still feel the same way? But you can only join the page once you've immigrated and then want to return. And
you're too honest to lie and join the page.
Yes, that's exactly what happened.
So this is who you get, the admin of the South African Migrating to New Zealand group. Sorry, I might have the name a little bit wrong, but everyone knows it. It's got a long name. And
so sometimes I get the name. Because it's changed a little bit from when I've joined. The name's changed a little bit. So no.
Honest person, a lot of knowledge, dedicated, and realizing there's a difference between emotions and truth, and everyone has their own truth. That's fine. But at the end of the day, we're all trying to make our lives better in some way. And that's what the group is all about. It's making lives better. And you're guarding that. You guys are, you all have the same effort to guard that idea, right? You volunteers, the admin volunteers, you're guarding that idea within reason. I mean, someone can have a little outburst. That's fine. They might, but if someone is obsessively hating on New Zealand, they're out because it hurts the newcomers coming in.
No, it definitely does. You don't just remove a member just because it's after a lot of talking, and we discuss it. We have a separate admin group where we discuss things like this before we make a decision. And it's normally after we've spoken to the person a few times and asked them to respect the views of others and to respect the group and to respect the peace. And for us, that's quite important on the group. And something that people also need to remember is like, because we're admin, it's a big responsibility. And if someone is posting fake news on the group, we can actually get into trouble if we don't remove those type of things. It's not because we're biased or anything.
Yeah.
It's more because we can actually get into trouble for it as well.
Yeah.
We're responsible for what's on the group.
Yeah. And fake
And
news.
also,
Yeah.
what people need to remember is often INZ will put people on the group to see if we are following the rules. And you don't want your immigration to be jeopardized because of something you said on Facebook.
Right.
And that's why we're quite strict on it. Especially me, I'm quite strict on it.
Yeah.
They call me, Shane used to call me the police on the group, because
Okay.
I'm a stickler for rules. And if the rule is we're not allowed to post about this, I will remove it.
Yeah.
And it's better to do that because then the group is clean and the information you get on there is accurate and true.
And all those are in the rules right there. You can just read them online.
Yes, you can read them. It's and we try and keep fake profiles out as best as we can. And like I said, if you are worried about something, you're always welcome to message an admin. And we all have different views. Like Yvonne is already in New Zealand, so she can give you a different type of answer or a different type of review, where Melanie and myself and Geraldine, we're still in South Africa. So we can only also sometimes answer some questions so much because we don't have the experience yet. But we're always there for everybody.
Thank you so much for sharing. I look forward to your big burst of photos when you finally come here.
Yeah, it's going to be spam. Like someone's going to, one of the other admins are probably going to block me from the group.
For too much spamming of good pictures. Yeah.
And also I can't wait to start seeing other people's regular posts about visas approved and job offers approved and the airport photos. We missed that.
Yeah.
It was very nice to see it all the time.
Yeah. Regular flow of photos, successes. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, hopefully that will be soon. It will happen sometime. Change is always happening. So, demand is here. So, yeah. Zevida, I look forward.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. It's been really great.
It was good to just talk about some of the stuff and see that we're so passionate about it and remind ourselves why we're doing this.
Yes. All right.
Okay. Sorry. I hope you have a good day.
You too. Yeah.